Hey guys, I'm here to show you today the first step to building your fly rod. I got the rod from Rod Geeks, and when it first comes, it comes in four pieces like this for easy travel. This is an 8 weight that we're going to be working with. The first step you need to do is take each individual piece and find out where the spine is. Okay, so the spine is the point where it wants to bend into naturally after the reproduction, or after the manufacturing process. So how you do that, I put tape on here so you guys can see a little easier. I already found the spine, I'm just showing you how I went about it. So I'm gonna hold the thinner part up in my hand like this, and you want it to bend. Once you have it bend, you're gonna roll it. You're gonna see it's gonna wanna snap into certain positions. You'll see it wants to snap this direction the most, where I applied the tape to show you guys where the spine is on this. Now, you'll find usually 2 spines. That's a small one that just happened, and then the bigger one is usually the opposite. So when it really snaps into that position, you know you found the spine. So that for this smaller piece, this is the direction I want it to go. So I'm going to work my way down all 4 sections and find the spine, place them all together, mark them so I know where it is before I go on to the next step. Alright, so now that we found the spine on all 4 of our pieces, we're going to assemble the rod with the spine all facing the same direction. Now it is harder on the 4-piece fly rods to find the spine of each one, especially as you get up a little higher. But you kind of do the best you can. Okay, so we found the spine, we put all the pieces together, and then what I ended up doing, because I'm going to have this thing together and apart a million times building this thing, is I took some tape like this, and I wrapped it around, and I marked where the spine was at each and every one. So every time I put this together and apart, I'm going to know exactly where it's supposed to go. Alright, so we found the spine. The next step is to work on putting on the reel seat and putting the handles on. So I got all this stuff on mudhole.com. I went with the wind grips because I thought they were pretty cool with the fighting butt on here. And I just got a CRB Products reel seat. Now I messed up because when I first got this is supposed to sit over this, cover that hood there, so that it sits nice and flush and hides part of the reel. What went wrong is when I bought this, they sell different diameters in here, okay, and this was the only one they had, so I ended up going with it. And what I ended up doing is I took a ream rod and I started slowly boring it out, but they only come in certain diameters where, you know, I maxed this out. So what I did was I would slowly add strips of sandpaper like this over the rod as I got bigger and bigger, and just put it in there, spun it in circles real slowly, and I actually got it to the point where I fit it pretty perfectly over here. It took a long time, but you have to just slowly go at it, keep adding layers to it. You kind of squeeze it in there, twist it, and once you're in there, you just keep twisting. You'll see little small pieces will keep coming out, and then if you go slow enough, you're able to get it actually perfect. The next step is to make sure that we take our bottom piece here of our fly rod and make sure that it fits into the fighting butt. So right now, as you can see, it does not. So what you do is you work your way through your ream rods again. So you have different sizes where you put in here and you slowly increase the diameter of the hole. And the key is slow, because you don't want to go too big and then have to put tape on here to make it fit perfectly. All right, to show you guys an example here, I'm going to take one of my smaller rods, put it in here. The other tip you have is you don't want to go too deep. So I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to put a piece of tape on here so I know I'm not drilling too deep through the whole thing here. So we only want it to go about that deep. Gives us a reference point, so we don't punch through that thing and have to buy another one. So I put the bigger one on. As you get up to the larger diameters, you really got to be careful because you'll burn through it pretty quick, and you don't want to go too big on this. So the key is just keep going slow until it fits the way you want it to fit. All right. She fits perfectly. It's snug, but not too snug, so I can still fit a little bit of epoxy in there so that this thing sits sits real nice and flush. It's all level, even, and everything. The next thing we have to do is the rod's going to kind of start to come together now. The reel seat's going to come on this way, and it's going to line up with this, and then we need to hollow this out next to make sure that it fits through here and it fits snugly down here. Alright, so we got it where this thing slides on, it's snug right at the end. The next step is making sure the reel seat fits in between these. The other thing is that the reel seat is really wide compared to the blank here. So you take your Scotch tape and you build up layers in between to make sure that this fits snugly, and that so the epoxy can sit in between it and it can adhere itself real strong. Now here's an example I actually went too far. So what we'll do is we'll slowly start to back this out. Try that. That's what we want right there. Now I'm going to do that to these other two. I'll speed it up so you guys don't have to watch. Alright, so we ended up getting it pretty good. It's snug, but not too snug around all three. 1, 2, and 3. It lines up perfectly to my fighting butt here. So we're sitting pretty. Now the other thing I am doing is I'm adding just a little bit of masking tape to where the front grip is going, because I bored it out just a little too much, and also gives little channels where the epoxy can kind of get trapped and sit. So I feel like it'll be a little more snug. Alright, so this is the epoxy that I'm using. What you do is you take 50% of each one with the popsicle stick, put it on the plate, put it on the left here. You take relatively equal part of the hardener, put it on the right, mix it together until it becomes one color. And then once it's mixed, you have about 45 minutes to work with this before it dries. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and put this on here. So I'm going to take some epoxy. I'm going to be pretty liberal with it. Put some a little bit down in here. I'm gonna put it in there. And the other thing is this wind grip that I got has a line in it right here, so I'm lining that up at the spine, so from the top of the rod you actually won't be able to see it, just for appearances. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with my reel seat. I have that glob there, which is actually okay. I'm going to take that, and that's going to help seal my reel seat onto up to my fighting butt. Okay, so I'm going to keep working down here at this point. I'm going to put some there, put some here. You don't want to be chintzy with it. If you put more in the front like this, it'll kind of push it as it goes to fill the gaps of the parts towards the back side. Alright, so I'm going to take my reel seat, align where the reel goes with the bottom and my spine, and I'm going to push this down into place. Okay. Obviously there's a big mess there. You just want to keep it off your threads. If I were smart, I would have taped these off. Luckily I didn't get any on there, on the thread material down here, but we're good so far. So I'm going to get a paper towel and I'm going to clean this up. Alright, so what I did was I actually waited a day until everything I did here completely dried. So this is locked into place permanently. The reason I did that was because when I go to put this on and epoxy this on, the foregrip, I really have to kind of push and twist to get this thing into place to where I want it to be. And I didn't want to spin these components out of place with the spine. So the step we're gonna move on to right now is I'm gonna mix my epoxy, I'm gonna place it on here and then slide that over within the correct orientation of the spine, because these wind grips that I got, they have this little line through it, which is kind of cool, because when I look at it from the top when I'm fishing, I wanna see that wind logo right there. Not sure if you can see that. And I align that properly with the wind logo that I have right there. Glop it on there. Just be sure to keep that clean from a aesthetic standpoint. Good enough. And then we take this guy, figure out where we're going with our spine here. So we want the wind grip up, matching this wind grip. And little turns as you go in. Just make sure everything lines up as you end up. It's always easier to push on once you have the epoxy, because you have almost the lubrication from the epoxy. You can see as I'm coming down, all that extra epoxy being kind of smushed out there. That's a good sign. Thread it onto the hood nice and tight. Again, that's why I waited a day, because it takes a lot of extra pressure to do that. And look at all that extra epoxy. I'm gonna wipe all that off to start. All right, we're perfectly aligned. So now, again, I'm gonna clean this up, just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on the paper towel. I'm gonna clean up any extra epoxy. If you look real close there, it's flush with the hood, so the reel will seat underneath the cork here, which is a good look. Okay, now the next thing I did was I actually taped a tape measure along the entire side of the rod, with the tip being the 0 point. And here we have the exact measurements in inches between all the guides. Okay, so that's what we're gonna follow for this particular rod build. All right, so the first one is at 4.5. So we're gonna come down and we're gonna mark our rod here. The next one I put over here is at 9.5 inches. So we go over to 9.5 inches. We make another mark. All right, so I ended up taking tape and a Sharpie and marking out where each one should end up going at the bottom of each tape line. See that there? And I cut the tape so I knew where the guide should go. I did that all the way up. All right, so we got this thing pretty set up so far. So I got it in my threader here. Just a little preview of how things are gonna look once it's put together. I did this to pick out the thread color I'm looking for. Now, I put my first guide on here and I measured it out so the tip right there, it's gonna line up right to that black dot. So I know it's in line with my spine, I know it's in the correct position. Alright, so we wrapped it up upon itself, cleaned it up a little bit. That was about 4 wraps. A couple more wraps, then we'll cut the tag end. Okay, so now we can come through here, cut our tag end out. And keep it going. Alright, so we're getting close to my first rubber band here, so I'm going to come in and just cut that out. Alright, so now we take this piece of string like this. We're going to place it under the one we're running right here. And we're going to keep wrapping. Alright, so we cut the tag end. We're going to pull the tag end through the loop that we made prior. Okay. So we're looking good there. Take the yellow strand that we looped through before, and then that's what's going to pull this end through. There you go. Razor blade. Not bad for our first pass. The next step for us to do is thread it the other direction, wrapping up towards here. And then we have this one fully done. And pull this through. And cut. Alright, first guide is done. Now we got some cleaning up to do with our burnishing tool, of course. Alright, so I got all the guides done here. Same process I showed you guys before. And what we're going to do now is work on putting on the tip top. Yeah, that's what we want. So between these two, I can cut them and place them inside of the tip top. Right inside there. Pretty precise with this, so I can shove that in there. And I'll cut a few more off that piece right here. Put them in there, and then I'll heat it with a lighter. And shove it on the tip top, in line, and then we'll wrap it on. Alright, stay tuned. We're going to heat it up real nice. And what we do is we're going to place it on top of our rod. Then the key is to line it up. And yes, that was burning my fingers real bad. Probably should use pliers or something, but I did not. Make sure she's perfectly straight, which we got right there. Beautiful. And the next step is take a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol and clean off any excess. All right, so we got her all laced up. Now we lock her down with epoxy. Let's go. Alright, so we made our mixture here of epoxy. Real light layer. What we're going to do here is apply it real slow as the rod is spinning. And we will do this all the way down the rod. Light coats, multiple applications. So I got all the epoxy on all of the guides. Here I'm going to take rubbing alcohol inside of here. I'm going to light the wick. And the purpose of doing this to the epoxy is just to get the little bubbles out. And then just quick little, doesn't take a lot at all, quick little flashes. And here we have the final product. Stay tuned for when it makes its debut in Pulaski, New York next week. Salmon fishing, salmon run. October 2022. Thanks for watching.